Hi there, Nick here from Conservation Careers, and welcome to the podcast. Now, if you've ever wondered what a sustainable Amazon looks like in practice, how local livelihoods, science, and education can work together to protect one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, this episode is for you. Now, today's guest is Johana Reyes, founding member and president of the board for the Alliance of Sustainable Amazon. Joanna joins us from the southeastern Peruvian Amazon, a region rich in Brazil nut forests, scarlet macaws, and community-led conservation. We unpack the Alliance's mission and model from long-term biological research and reforestation, with local families and education programs that connect children and students directly with the forest. Joanna shares what her life is really like leading a small field-based team in the Amazon, the insights her work is revealing, and the practical ways that you can get involved through internships, volunteering, and research placements. So whether you're a student, a career switcher, or professional looking to make a greater impact, you'll come away with grounded careers advice, from experimenting early and translating your skills to building confidence through hands-on experience. It's a field-based, hopeful, and practical episode. Enjoy.
My name is Johana Reyes. I'm the co-founder and director of the Alliance for Sustainable Amazon in Peru.
Great. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. It's so nice to meet you properly. We've exchanged so many emails, but it's really nice to kind of put names to faces and so forth. So yeah, welcome. So you're the founding member and you're the president for the Alliance for a Sustainable Amazon, ASA. And I thought I'd maybe just start our conversation really with just paints a little bit of a picture about the Peruvian Amazon, where you're based. Bring us to your amazing biodiverse rich region for those who haven't been there, and I've not been there. So yeah, tell me what's unique about your location.
Sure. Well, you can get a sense with my background
Yeah.
picture. But Peru, it's my country. I'm Peruvian, and it's a beautiful country. But most people think about Peru and think about Machu Picchu and think about llamas and alpacas and like the Andes. 2/3 of the country is Amazon rainforest. And we are in one of the most biodiverse places on the planet. We're very lucky for that. We are located, the Alliance for Sustainable Amazon, my organization, is located in the southeastern Peruvian Amazon, and this is very close to the border between Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. This is a very special part of the Amazon, not only for Peru, but for the Amazon in general, because we are in what is known as the Brazil Nut Corridor. This is in the Peruvian side, about 1 million hectares of Brazil nut forest. This is the only part in the country where Brazil nut trees grow, and the neighboring areas in Bolivia are Brazil, and also the only parts in Bolivia and Brazil where Brazil nuts grow. And this is very special for all of you that have ever seen a Brazil nut in your trail nut mix. Brazil nuts are nuts that grow in the forest. We don't plant them; they grow naturally, and we harvest them once a year. And that's a very important source of income for local families in our part of the Amazon. Brazil nut trees are probably the only plant for which we can get a sustainable harvest, and is the only non-timber product that can be sustainably harvested in our side of the Amazon. So this is a very important part for us, a very important part of the Amazon, because this 1 million hectares of land is mostly managed by local families and local people. These people are allowed to harvest a nut, but they don't do anything else in the forest, meaning that the forest is mainly protected. Unfortunately, the laws have been changing. There's of course, some pressure to allow people to do more in their forests, and some people have been allowed to do some selective logging. However, forest for the most part in this Brazil nut corridor is still intact, and that means that we have very high biodiversity levels. in these areas. Another interesting fact about my region, the Madre de Dios region, is that more or less half the territory of this region is protected land. So it's either a national park or like protected area, mostly managed by the government, but we do have some private conservation areas as well. So if you have like 50% of the land protected, like as a national park or national forest, and you have on top of that 1 million hectares of like Brazil nut forests that are managed by local people, that looks very good for all the wildlife that lives in these forests. The one thing that is like a challenge for us here, because there are challenges everywhere, and the challenge that we have here certainly is mining. We do have gold, and there is a big problem with informal and illegal gold mining in our region. The mining happens very far away from where we are, but it is like the top one economic activity in the region, and you can feel it even in the capital city. Again, luckily for us, we're located very far away, so we don't get to like engage in any kind of like activity near a mining area. But this is something that is definitely debilitating many communities, and they are degrading parts of forests, even within some protected areas. So it is a challenge. And the other challenge that we have is logging. Most of the logging that happens in Peru in general, it's informal and or illegal, meaning that most of the like wood that leaves the country hasn't been cut like legally. And that is an issue. Luckily for the Brazil nut corridor, where we are located, Brazil nut trees are really good wood, have really good wood, but they are also very productive trees. And that is the main reason why they're not being cut. And for the most part, they are the one tall standing tree in our forest. And that's great because Brazil nut trees provide shelter and they are an important like ecosystem for lots of animals and plants. A good example is the scarlet macaw. This is a very well-known bird. Scarlet macaws nest in holes of tall trees. So if you don't have tall trees in a forest, then scarlet macaws are not going to be able to nest. And of course, if they don't nest, they don't reproduce. So we know what happens after that. Because there are Brazil nut trees standing, then scarlet macaws have the chance to nest in these trees. So that is just one of the advantages of having Brazil nut trees around and being in a Brazil nut tree forest.
That's such a great introduction. Thank you so much. You touched on so many different aspects there about some of the threats where you're based, you know, the uniqueness of the area. And it's really interesting with like particularly Brazil nuts and Brazil nut trees to have that direct link to local livelihoods and the economy and the preservation of the forest too, as a result of that. Yeah. You mentioned like half of your area is national park. Like how protected do you feel as a national park? You talked about mining impinging elsewhere and some unsustainable or illegal felling, but do national parks typically feel quite well protected in your area and Peru, like more generally, or are they still under threat? Like what does the future look like for these parks?
I think that's an excellent question. I'm going to start with like how the country is doing. I'll
Yeah.
say that for the most part, like the national park system, it's a good system, meaning that for the most part, the areas are protected. There are rangers around. There are never enough rangers, but that's another topic. But for the most part, these are areas that are like well protected.
Yeah.
In areas where national parks or protected areas are overlapping the existence of important natural resources, then we have a big challenge. That doesn't happen everywhere. In our region, it does. with mining.
Mm.
It doesn't happen for all the national parks that we have in the region, but it happens for like a few. And the Peruvian government tries, and this varies depending on the administration, of course, but they do try to control it in different ways.
Mm.
Sometimes they are successful, they're partially successful, but usually it's just temporary.
Mhm.
And you can see it because like the mining towns went from like small towns 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to much larger towns these days.
Mm.
And of course, everything that comes around, like illegal mining.
Yeah.
So it can be a problem. It can be a problem for like degradation of the forest. It is a problem like for polluting water,
Mm.
and of course the fish in it, in a region where a lot of people eat fish, and mercury levels are certainly like high. Um, so there are a couple of national parks that are right in the mining area, and those are the ones that are being like hit the most.
Mm.
But there are other national parks that are like far away from those areas, and they don't really like are impacted by it.
Mm.
They might be impacted by like logging to some degree,
Mm.
but mining is it's its own thing, and definitely is the most like troublesome one, because when you mine, you destroy everything. So
Mm.
basically, what you see after a mining operation has gone through a patch of forest is nothing but sand. And there have been a few initiatives in our region to like do reforestation on those areas.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's very difficult, and second of all, it will take a long time to recuperate.
Yeah.
Um, it is definitely its own system by now. And because gold is so profitable, like everybody like makes money. Starting from the little like the one worker that is just working on a daily basis to the people that are like owning an operation.
Mm.
There are mining concessions. So these are places that the government has like given like authorization to
Mm.
be mined under, of course, certain regulations.
Mhm.
Um, but even in those places, like people fail to fulfill all the regulations, and what ends up happening is that because there's so much pressure from like illegal mining,
Mm.
then the government is pushed to like withdraw some of the requirements that they're asking, or just like suspend the timing which they're obligated to fulfill those requirements. And that is something that happens every couple of years. It's like, oh, people have until this deadline to fulfill this requirements, and that deadline comes, and the miners are out doing a protest. They go to Lima, to the capital of Peru, just they stay in Congress, and like Congress says, okay, we're going to give you another 2 more years. And that has been happening for like 10 years, 12 years. So it is definitely a big thing. And again, because mining is the top one economic activity in the region, most authorities, like from the regional government to like the mayors of the different towns, especially the mining towns, of course, they are miners themselves, or they're in favor of mining, and they can be like vocally against the national government and their own efforts to uh, to to reduce mining in the area.
Mm.
So like even like with even with some initiatives that the government take, like regulating how much gas is going to go into the region,
Mm.
that hurts us all. That just happened a few weeks ago. There wasn't gas for like an entire week. And like people couldn't go to where they needed to go because of that.
Mm. Mm.
So we do have, and that affects us all also, because
Mm.
like even if you're not in a mining area, if there's no gas in the region, there's no gas for anybody.
Mhm.
So there are certainly challenges, but I'm a positive person, so I want to say that there are certainly also many opportunities. And there is a small but a very enthusiastic, organized civil society that works from different fronts.
Yeah.
Uh, at the research level, at the political advocacy level, at the environmental education level. So we're all trying from our own fronts to contribute to making people aware that this forest is a resource, definitely, because that's how most people see it here. But there's more to that.
Yeah.
And I believe that the first step is always learning, and learning about your own forest, and being aware of the extent um of how important the forest is for everybody,
Mhm.
wildlife and people.
Mm. Perfect. That sets the scene really beautifully, actually, for the impact that you're seeking to make and are making through the Alliance for a Sustainable Amazon, the organization that you founded and that you're a president of. Tell us a little bit about you. No, you call yourselves ASA, is that right? So it's the Alliance for a Sustainable Amazon. Yeah, tell us about ASA. Why was it established in the first place? Like, what was your intention? Like, why was it born?
And so, uh, thank you. The first thing I'm going to say is that ASA, the Alliance for a Sustainable Amazon, we are in fact two organizations. So
Yeah.
we are ASA US, which is we are a US based 501c3 organization,
Mhm.
but we also have ASA Peru. Um, and I am the president of ASA Peru.
Mhm.
We are sister organizations, and we work together. It's not that we're separate. We
Mhm.
are sister organizations. We work together and we make decisions together for everything that we do
Mhm.
in Peru. The Alliance for Sustainable Amazon was born um, in our heads 10 years ago. This is
Mm.
today. This year is going to be our 10-year anniversary. So we're very excited about that. And it was an idea that Jeff Delis, my husband, and I had while we were thinking about what our what our interests and hopes were for the future, for our personal future, and of course for our professional future.
Mm.
We both have been very invested in Peru as a country, and in sustainable development and conservation.
Mhm.
Um, Jeff is an entomologist, and he did his PhD work here in this region. And before meeting him, I had been working in sustainable development for over 15 years already.
Mhm.
Um, and like I came to the region and I started seeing, learning more about the region because I'm originally from Lima. And I came to the region, I started seeing what was the situation, and we started thinking, what can we do about it? What can we do about it with the skills that we have? What can we do about it um, with the possibilities that we have?
Mhm.
And that's how ASA started. ASA started as a organization that wanted to contribute and still is contributing to the conservation of biodiversity in the Peruvian Amazon. And we're doing that through research, education, and reforestation. Those are our three focal areas.
Mm.
On the research side, we are concentrating our efforts on long-term basic biological research, and especially outside of protected areas.
Mm.
And why is that? First, because there is very, very little research that is being done in this part of the Amazon in Peru. And the little one that is being made, it's only in protected areas. However, we know that local people and people in general are going to be using more and more of their own forests that it's outside of protected areas. Um, and we don't know much about those. So it's okay, we are in the Brazil corridor. How much of what is the impact that local families having when they are harvesting the nuts in the ecosystem? What is the impact they are having in their forests? How is that impacting biodiversity levels, and so on and so forth. We don't know much, and if we don't know much, we can't really advise on like how we can create conservation strategies. So we need to start by learning. And why basic biological research? Because um, in, let's just say, in North America,
Mhm.
um, there are 800, give or take 800 species of butterflies in that whole part of the world.
Mm.
In Peru, in a small area within this region, in just one sampling that lasted less than a month, we found over 1,500 species of butterflies.
Wow.
In just one sampling, it, it's crazy. Biodiversity is very high, and we still know very little about it. So we need to start with basic research because we can't advance to other types of research if we don't know the basics yet.
Mhm.
And why long term? Because as like everybody that is in the nonprofit sector knows, long term, it's probably the hardest thing. Long term projects are probably the hardest thing to fund and the hardest thing to engage in.
Mhm.
When you get funding, you usually get for short term, sometimes medium term projects, but never for long term projects. And sometimes you do need long term projects to like understand something like in a more like in a more significant manner. We know that it requires more resources. We know that it requires a lot of commitment, um, but we decided that we wanted to go at it, and that's what we focus on. Um, um, I know you have more questions, so I'm gonna very quickly just tap on like education and reforestation. In education, we are focusing our efforts on like working with different groups. And we have programs that like target each group specifically. So we work with local elementary school and high school kids. We also work with local undergraduate students, but also undergraduate students around the country and international students. And we also have specific educational programs for other groups, like local families or groups that don't tap in any of the previous groups. The basic idea, especially for the kids, teenagers, and local families and local communities, is to create significant learning experiences through which they can have firsthand connection with the forest
Mhm.
and see the forest and understand the forest in ways in which they haven't before. As I mentioned briefly, for most people here, the forest is seen as a resource to use, something that is useful for me, for my family. Um, so like when you see the forest, they're just thinking, okay, what can I hunt? What can I use? What can I sell? And we want to like just for a second, just stop that train of thought and just work with them and let's see the forest as a whole. Let's understand how the forest works. And then let's understand how what we've seen, like it's connected to me as a person, as a family. So for instance, lots of the kids that we work with have families that harvest the nuts, but they didn't know that we have the nuts because there is a bee that pollinates the flower that then is going to become the nut.
Mhm.
They didn't know that we have new Brazil nut trees because there's a little animal called a goody that will bury the seeds. And that's the reason why we have trees. Um, so now they know that maybe I shouldn't hunt too many agoutis because if we have them all, we're not going to have Brazil nuts in the future. Or they will learn, oh, if my Brazil nut tree, it's in the forest, then the bees that are pollinating it will like get to it easily. But if I clear all the area around the Brazil nut, then the bee's not going to get there.
Mm.
And then the tree's not going to have fruits.
Mhm.
So that's what we're trying to do with them. And and of course, expose them to Finca Las Piedras, which is our research station that it's in the forest, and expose them to a community that does research and why it is important to do research, how research can benefit us.
Mhm.
With the like older people, like undergraduate students, for instance, we provide a series of professional development opportunities that are very diverse, from like 1 day experiences to like 10-week or 6-month experiences in which they could like improve their research skills. They, the, uh, especially when we bring undergraduate students from other parts of the country, um, to like provide them with an experience that like a, a full cover, an all included experience that they probably like would have never had before. Um, so that's important for us. And finally, with reforestation, we have two main goals. One was to recuperate the areas that were previously degraded at our own research station
Mhm.
before we got it,
Mhm.
and we're doing a lot of progress on that. We're like 85% done. And we are working with local families on reforestation efforts for Brazil nut trees. And this include like training on how to germinate the seeds all the way to like planting them in their forests.
Mhm.
So that's the summary. Sorry, it took me so long.
No, not at all. I'm transfixed. It's amazing what you've done and what you have achieved actually across like 10 years. It sounds like things have really sort of built momentum. When you look back, like what have been some of the achievements? Like what have you learned through your research? Does anything sort of stand out? You shared about, just the one sample of the butterflies across a month and what you discovered there. Have you found anything else that's kind of really, yeah, been enlightening across the last 10 years? I'm going to add other questions onto this. Like how have people's attitudes changed at all with the education work you've been doing? And if you want to touch on the reforestation and how things have been evolving there too, I'd love to hear it. Like just give us a bit of an idea as to what have been the impacts that you've received over or you've created over the last decade or so?
Happy to. Um, on the research side, we have three main projects: our butterfly project,
Hmm.
our uh, biological monitoring project, and our plant phenology project. We have three main projects. And I'm going to start with the butterfly project. That's our biggest project and it has lots of like component. But the first thing I'm going to say is that even though it's called the butterfly project, it's not about butterflies. Um, we use butterflies as an indicator to understand the forest.
Right.
We are studying butterflies, the diversity of butterflies, and the relationship the butterflies have with their host plants,
Yeah.
which for those that don't know, one species of butterfly usually has one or two host plants. So if the plants disappear, then the butterfly disappears. And that is a relationship that is important to notice. Um, so we have a butterfly project and we are, of course, working with butterflies, but we are working with butterflies to understand how the forest works and how the forest is changing.
Yeah.
Um, and by understanding like the biodiversity of butterflies, but also some of the butterflies dynamics. So we have a couple of projects, one of on migration of butterflies, another one of like reproduction in butterflies and how depending on the temperature, butterflies will, let's say, pause their reproductive skills or abilities until like the conditions get better. And by doing that, like we are also starting to understand more about like what are the effects on the changes on temperature, but also what are the effects of like a degraded forest, like a previously degraded forest with a forest that was recuperating and how that brings like newer communities of butterflies and so on and so forth.
Mm.
We have a series of publications that you can access through our website, sustainableamazon.org, that I must say we're relaunching this year very soon. But we have lots of peer review articles, scientific papers describing new species of butterflies. Last year, we launched a DNA molecular lab in situ. So we have been doing DNA analysis, and that's great because that is allowing us um, to discover new species of butterflies
Mm,
faster.
mm,
So that's great.
mm,
And also it's a great resource for the region in general. DNA analysis in this region and in the country is not as common and as it could be in the like, northern hemisphere. So we have a lot of that. We work in partnership. So we have our own team, of course, and we produce our own articles, but we also work in partnership with a couple of researchers. The one that's probably closer to home for you, Nick, is the Queen Mary University of London. We work with a researcher there and have been working with series of PhD students and master students on following up some of the discoveries that we've made also.
mm.
So there's a lot of cool stuff for the scientific community that are interested in like butterflies and insects in general that you like that we're contributing to. On the biological monitoring side, we have been not only surveying different groups of animals and plants. We have a like weekly survey on birds. We are now like doing um, a permanent survey on mammals with camera traps. In with we survey fish, herbs, and different like groups of plants. And because of that, we are creating a robust data set on biodiversity outside of protected areas. And that's very important because that allows us to see what is in our forest and what is not in our forest. And the biodiversity levels that we found are astonishing. They're like great. Like we have pumas, we have jaguars, we have like short-eared dog. That is a very, very rare um, mammal to see. Uh, we have pretty much everything that you could find in the middle of the national park, and we have it there in our research station, which is 3 kilometers away from the closest like local community.
Mm,
And that is great news because that means that like regardless of the the influence of the human activity that
mm,
is happening in the forest, biodiversity is thriving.
mm,
Um, so that's good news, but also that like makes us think. So now that we know that we reach like biodiversity levels are very high and rich in our area, then how can we ensure that they stay like that?
mm,
So that's important.
mm,
And then in terms of plants, we have a couple things. We have a lot of data on Brazilian trees, their flowering and fruiting processes, um, and and that's cool, important. We're working on a paper
mm,
um, about that this year, and we have a 1 hectare forest dynamic plot, which is a plot where we have like survey every like plant that it's that has certain characteristics. And again, this is a long-term project. So like by looking at the development of the plant community in that plot, we'll understand more about how the forest is working.
mm,
So that's pretty cool. In terms of education, well, where can I begin? We've worked in all these years directly with about like between 4 to 5,000 uh, kids in different experiences. We have worked with at least like 1,500 undergraduate students, like local and nationwide undergraduate students, many of which have produced their own like research outcomes and research papers. Um, that's we have worked with local teachers. We have created like a manual to teach science locally with teachers in the community. We have also co-created a handbook on best practices in like educational initiatives for field stations, and that we did in collaboration with two other field stations, one in Canada managed by the McGill University and one in Belgium with Hasselt University. And that was part of an initiative with the Organization of Biological Field Stations, OBFS. Uh, oh, OBFS is a great resource for like your listeners, most likely. So it's great to know it has information about all field stations around the world.
Mm.
So it's great. And we're currently being part of an initiative called the Virtual Field that will allow us to have different videos about our like different ecosystems that will be free of access for like all sorts of educational initiatives for anybody that wants to use them. So we're currently doing that, and that's pretty fun as well. And finally, in terms of reforestation, I'll say that like we've I actually have those numbers somewhere that I need to like go at them soon. But we've worked with, in the course of this past 5 years, we've worked with about 60 local families to do reforestation in their areas. We have contributed to the reforestation of about 20,000 hectares of land. And we have distributed like over 2,000 Brazil nut trees, which might not sound as a large number when you're talking about planting, but like germinating Brazil nut trees is a very labor-intensive process, and usually takes an entire year between this. You germinate the seed until the plant is ready. So we're very happy with our numbers so far.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. So interesting to hear how things are developing and where you are, and excited to think about where things might go into the future too. I want to change gears slightly. There's a few more things to talk about, and I'm a little bit conscious of our time as well. And we've got people who are listening want to ask questions once I finish our recording as well. So I want to talk about your work, your career personally, Johana, as well. People listening, so we want to try and really kind of shine a light on what it's like to actually work in conservation, kind of warts and all. So, sort of fairly briefly, like what is exactly your job? I mean, I know you're the founding member, you're the president, but what does that actually mean to someone who doesn't know what it's like to be you on a day-to-day or week-to-week level? Like, what does it typically look like to do your job?
Okay. Well, how do I start? I think the best way to start is to say that I'm a community social psychologist. And for all my professional career, I work in the nonprofit sector.
Mhm.
I've always been interested in working at two different levels. On one side, I've always liked designing projects, carrying them out, evaluating them, just being in touch with the communities I serve.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, I've always been interested in strategic planning, fundraising, like how to make sure that an organization is run. And I'll say that like for me, those two things are important. And I always like to be connected to the two things.
Mm.
Um, and that's what I do in my job. I work at those two levels. We are a small organization. We have like a little more than 15 employees between like full-time and part-time. So we're a small organization. And when you work in a small organization, you wear many hats.
Mhm.
So although I do a lot of like deciding like all the education activities, evaluating them, and just facilitating them with my team, um, I also work a lot in like fundraising, connecting with potential donors. Um, I do all the communication with like faculty members that we work with, or like local teachers, or with people that want to like get involved with the organization in any way. We have like an international internship program, and like I work a lot with my interns as well. So like I do a lot of communication, let's say, and like that is part of the job. But like I at some point, I remember, especially at the beginning, uh, because we were like even smaller then, like I've done birth monitoring at some point because like the person that was doing it was on vacation. You know, if like something happened to the cook at camp, we will all just like rotate the the cooking the cooking tasks, the cooking duties or whatever. Um, that was at the very beginning. We're like tiny. But I think the point is like I I just do what is needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, like I've gained so many different skills.
Yeah.
I am convinced, like, and I have been convinced of this even before I founded ASA, that you do need uh, interdisciplinary teams pretty much everywhere where you are.
Yeah.
And like everybody needs to be able to comprehend everything that you're doing. And you don't need to be a physicist if you're working in like a physics project, but you at least need to understand why you're doing it. Like, how is it working? What are the results that you're expecting? And like, of course, we're not working at the physics level, but I'm just giving a random example. But
Mm.
but I do work with people with all sorts of backgrounds. We have this collaboration with a project called the Jungle Biomechanics Lab, for instance. And most of the people that we collaborate with for that particular project are engineers, chemists, are physicists, like, and we work together and like we need to brainstorm about the things that we're gonna do together.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that that's very special because like we we all are um thankful and grateful about the skills that we have and how those are useful to like, create a valuable project. Um, so I do a lot, like this summer will be, I do what is needed and I do a little bit of everything.
And it shows the diversity and that interdisciplinary nature that you mentioned that I think is typical across conservation, actually. And the skill sets you mentioned that you use are ones we talk about quite a lot here: communications, fundraising, project management, along with everything else that you're talking about in terms of running a successful organization from the ground, from the cook up, or wherever anyone might sit. That's really interesting. If someone's listening and they are inspired by you and your work, or perhaps you meet someone and they're an aspirational conservationist, one of your interns maybe. Like, what careers advice do you typically give people who want to work in conservation? What things do you think might really help people to move along and tick, and also to move towards a career, a paid role?
We work with a lot of people that just graduated for our international internship program, for instance. And one of the things that I always tell them is like, if you're interested in a career in conservation or in academia, because many of them
Hmm.
could go either direction, um, and you just graduated, just try it all. If you're curious about this thing, try it. If you're curious about this other thing, try it. Because this is the time in which you try things and you see what you like and you see what you don't like.
Yeah.
If you are interested in academia and like you come to us, for instance, and we're doing it like, or we're assisting you to do an independent research project, be flexible.
Mhm.
Because if you think that you have it all figured out and then something happens, because something always happens when you're in the field and you need to change, like, don't feel that like that is your fault or that is like something that like you could have prevented. Sometimes things are not preventable.
Mhm.
So just learn from that
Yeah.
experience. If you're doing an internship, for instance, in your independent project didn't come up, like you couldn't finish it or like you didn't obtain the result that you were hoping for, that is still fine because that is part of the learning process. The process of doing the project is the learning
Mm.
more than the result
Mm.
if you're at that stage of your career. Um, we also work with some people that are changing careers and they can be a little like, afraid of like start trying things again.
Yep.
And for those people, like piece of advice that I give them is it's okay to be scared. You work in this for 10 years, 12 years, whatever, and now you're looking at something new. So let's start with something that you know. And and use that thing that you know what to do, how to do, and let's translate it into something that you can do here. Um, and start making yourself more comfortable. Um, and of course, yeah, you might realize that like you thought, oh, I want to switch career to conservation, but like maybe like not this part of like doing conservation in the field, but maybe I'm better suited for doing like communications about conservation. And that's great. And that's great. Um, because again, this is the time to figure things out. And lastly, I'll say, in my mind, it's always the time to figure things out. I mean, like it's almost never like a time where you're like, okay, this is how things are forever and ever, and that's it. Like I think that like you're always just questioning yourself, questioning what you're doing, thinking what would be my next step. And that is part of growing. And that like and that for me is a good sign
Yeah.
because that means that you're moving forward.
Fantastic advice. I love all that. So what I heard was, yeah, embrace uncertainty. Yeah. Be agile, immerse yourself, explore. Yeah. And build your confidence. See if you're switching, how you can transition some of your existing skills into the sector too. If people are listening to this, they're inspired and they want to kind of get involved with ASA. Yeah. What do you offer at ASA in terms of experiences or ways that people can kind of come and help or to learn and develop themselves?
Well, there are many ways to get involved with what we do. You can get involved remotely. You can get involved, be with us at the field station. At the station, we have different opportunities. If you are from somewhere else that is not Peru, probably you want to look at our internship program and our volunteer program. Our internship program, it's a more like structured, academic and research oriented experience. And usually we have 3 sessions, a 4-week session, an 8-week session, and a 12-week session.
Mm.
And the idea behind this program is that you like learn to do field research or connect yourself with conservation projects, that you have the opportunity to do your own independent project from zero all the way to the end. And um, the possibility to also develop new skills. We have specific weekly workshops on like QGIS, camera trapping methodologies, off-trail navigation, etc. And we also have reading discussions because it's a nice way to start like making sense of all those thoughts that you might be having about like the Amazon and the conservation challenges that the Amazon is facing. And we put all those into reading discussions. We have specific papers and we discuss them. I've always found it to be a very powerful moment because even though it's only 1 hour or an hour and a half a week, it's a moment in which people can really like just stop for a second and reflect about like what they are seeing and experiencing. So that is like one part. That is very like that program will fulfill many motivations that you might be having. If you're an undergraduate student, it could fulfill your motivation of getting more experience. If you just like recently graduated and you're thinking about applying for graduate school, it could fulfill your motivation of like getting more like real experience on like field research, for instance, or like publishing something. If you're changing careers, this could be a great opportunity to like get an initial taste of how that new career is going to look like.
Mhm.
So it's a great opportunity and guided from the very beginning until the end. We have like preparation workshops, we have Q&A sessions to help interns prepare for the experience, and we're with you all the way.
Mm.
The volunteer program, it's more like fluid in the sense that like it's shorter, like it goes for like as many days as you want, and you get to experience and contribute to the work that we do in research, education, and reforestation. But we also have other experiences. I was mentioning about the Jungle Biomechanics Lab. That is an experience for now only for U.S. For people that are either U.S. citizens, U.S. residents, or studying in the U.S.
Mhm.
That can apply to. Anybody can apply if they are enrolled at school. And you can like develop a research project, and you can come to the station for 2 weeks to develop that research project. So it's a cool program to have. Um, and we also have the resident naturalist program that is coming up very soon. Um, the call is coming up very soon for that program, and this is a 6-month placement where you will be with us and work specifically on the education, reforestation, and some of the research projects
Hmm.
as part of our team. And and that is what you can do with us directly. But I always get also people that might be interested in contributing remotely in many ways. And you are always welcome to just reach out to me. My email address is joanna.reyes@sustainableamazon.org. And you can find it at the website also, sustainableamazon.org. And I'm always happy. I always reply to every single email. So even if I take a few days, I will always reply. So reach out to me if you're curious. I'm always happy to listen to what you have to say. And I'm always here. If you have a project for school and you need information about the Amazon, we're always happy to help. We have cool resources that you can use. You can find more information about what you can see in our part of the Amazon on eBird, on iNaturalist. We have a project of a Wildlife Insights. So we're out there, and happy to hear from you.
Lots of ways to get involved. Yeah. And we'll obviously put links below wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast right now. In the last few minutes before we kind of hand over to our audience who want to, I'm sure, ask some questions of you also, I want to kind of wrap up with a few kind of quick questions with you, just to kind of think and hear about how you feel about conservation. The first one's a really open one, which is, if we could take you anywhere on the planet, Joanna, and you could see any species, where would you love to go and what would you love to see?
That one is a tough one,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go with under a leaf cutter ant nest.
Ooh.
Leaf cutter ants are, well, I love ants in general, but leaf cutter ants especially, they are actually in our logo because they have a very interesting story. Like when you see leaf cutter ants, they are always carrying their little ant and their little leaf, sorry. And I asked when we're with kids, when we had kids at the station, I asked them what do you think the ants do with the leaf? And most of them will say, oh, they eat them. And I'm like, no, they don't eat them. They take them into their home. They just mush them up, and mushrooms will grow out of them, and they eat the mushroom. So they are farmers. And they've been doing that for so many years without really changing that much of the forest. Humans, on the other hand, we haven't been doing agriculture for as long as ants. And the impact that humans have been having, it's different than the one that ants have been having. So one of the things that I would like to see if I could go anywhere is just be it tiny as a leaf cutter ant, and go deep inside and just see it all from the inside. I think that will be very cool.
That would be incredible. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you is, as a kind of conservation movement, we are all a force for good. We're doing our best to change the world, to protect nature, to protect wildlife. And yet we are still seeing nature, wildlife, biodiversity, whatever we want to call it, on the decline globally. What do you think we need to do more of or be better at as a kind of conservation sector to have more impact?
Well, I think that there are many answers to that question. And it depends on your role, what you're doing, what your job is, kind of person you are. But I'll just go with the one that I think could apply for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, if you are a person that is already aware that we need to work harder on conservation of the Amazon rainforest or any natural space, then talk about it. But don't talk about it with the people that already know about the problem or think like you. Talk about it with people that don't know about the problem and that don't think like you. I A couple of years ago, I remember listening to this lecture, and the woman like made the point of like, I always talk about conservation with every single person that I'm with, like with the taxi driver, with everybody, but I don't talk about it like as I am giving a lecture. I'm just like, I think about like what can connect to that person, and I use that to say like, oh, you like, I don't know, baseball. Do you know what like baseball balls are made out of? Like, and then I make a story that could connect them with why it would be important to like care about this or that.
Mm.
And like, and that means that like we are actively just getting the word out. Um, and I'll say that that is important, and that at the same time, it is important to listen and to remember that people have like different views, and be respectful of those
Mm.
as well.
Mm.
So I think that that is important, and I'll say that that is important because we have an excellent relationship with all the local communities that we work with, and most of the people that we work with are like, of course, are Brazilian like harvesters, but many of them also do some logging. Many of them have done mining at some point.
Mhm.
They hunt, like, and for it's safe for the kids. Like for them, it's like like hunting is okay, it doesn't need to be not okay. I need to say,
Mm. Mm.
um, or like cutting trees is fine. And you have kids that will come with all their little ideas, big ideas,
Mm.
and we connect with them, and we give our message, and we listen to what they have to say.
Mm.
Um, and we don't judge.
Mm.
Um, and and that can be hard sometimes.
Mm.
But I think that is crucial, because like little by little, like things could change, and you're always gonna find people to be more receptive of you if you start by listening instead of just like going at it straight.
And on that hopeful note, my final question is actually one connecting to hope and optimism. I just want to kind of check in, like, how are you feeling about the future of either our planet, of wildlife? Yeah, how do you think things are looking? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Are you unsure? Like, where are you sitting in your feelings?
Well, I know that there are certain things that we won't be able to change. I know that we are going to be facing the extinction of many things in our lifetime.
Mm.
And I know that the future that my son is going to see is going to be very different than the one that I've seen.
Mm.
Um, but even with all that, like I, I don't think that that's a reason enough to just give up. I think that, like, if anything, that's the reason enough. That's a good reason to keep fighting for what we can save.
Mm. Galvanizes spirit. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely talking to you, Joanna. Yeah. If people want to find out more, we're going to drop a link into where we've been talking. But thanks again for your time. Thanks for sharing your passion and your knowledge with us, Frida. It's been lovely to talk.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Nick. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been I am, we are a proud member of the Conservation Careers community. And I'm very excited to be joining after all these many years of like being part.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you again. Okay, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe so you never miss a new release. And if you can, leave a quick review or rating, as it really helps others to find this show. And a quick reminder, we record these conversations live in front of our members. So if you'd like to be in the audience next time, stay on for the off-mic Q&A and put your questions to our guests. There are two ways to join. The first is CC Pro, our members community with a busy schedule of events, access to pro chats like this, resources and templates, plus our job board with over 4,000 live jobs at any one time. And the second is CC Pass, access to all our premium training courses, including conservation standards, project management design, communications, fundraising, rewilding, community-based conservation, marine conservation, plus our careers trainings on applications, securing experiences, scholarships, and more. You can compare options and join at conservation-careers.com/join. Thanks again for being here and see you in the next episode.